Hey guys, I'm Nate from Nate Bakes Broadway, and this week I will be baking a recipe based on the really awesome show, 6. Let's do it. So 6 is a really cool new show. It actually started on the West End, and it's about Henry VIII's 6 wives. But everybody knows the rhyme, divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. But this musical is all about flipping that story on its head and talking about the stories of the 6 wives, not just Henry VIII, because who cares about him? So, for this recipe, I'm actually going off of Anne of Cleves, who was from Germany, and they got divorced and he just didn't really like her that much. But I'm kind of going for a blend between a classic German recipe and the quintessential British recipes. So we're actually going to be doing almond cranberry orange scone, and then it's going to have a like creamy honey like drizzle and sauce on the inside with toasted almonds and then a honey drizzle. And it's actually a combination between the quintessential British scone and a really, really awesome German dessert called the bee sting, and it's almond and it's caramel and honey, and it's a super crunchy, sticky dessert. So we're going to try to incorporate and fuse these two desserts together in honor of Anne of Cleves and Henry VIII and flipping desserts on their head. Let's do it. So the first step in our scone bee sting dessert is that we're going to make the actual scone part, which is a super cool recipe, and you can use this scone recipe for anything. I happen to like for Mother's Day. This is my go-to Mother's Day treat, and it's super simple. So the first thing we did is in here we combined the flour, sugar, baking powder, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of orange zest. I think all scones need a little bit of citrus, and I think orange cranberry with a little bit of almond just goes perfectly well and ties into our honey almond bee sting. So I think it's the perfect idea. So we have this, we just mixed it up. It's a lot of flour, but it actually not that much sugar, which is interesting. But then the key to it is taking cold butter, letting it come to room temperature, and then cutting it up to cubes, and then we're gonna put it in here. And a lot of recipes say use the stand mixer, but I like to do it by hand. Come on, you gotta roll up the sleeves, okay? Gonna get a little dirty, but it's fine. Okay, and then you just kind of try to like incorporate it into small, around pea-sized pieces with your hands. And you just wanna make sure you get all the flour in there. You don't want any huge butter chunks, and you don't want any flour that has no butter. And we just continue to do this, and I remember when we first saw 6 before the pandemic, it was in previews on Broadway as the COVID pandemic hit and had to close, but I think right before opening night, which is so hard, but we saw it on the West End in London, and it was just such an amazing experience because it's such a fun show. We knew nothing about it when we went to see it, but we wanted to see something. We were there, we're Broadway people, and we were like, what can we see? We saw the show 6, and we were like, oh, that's an interesting concept. Like, you know, as Americans, even we know that history, and we're like, sure, let's do that. But it's so fun. It's shorter, but it's kind of just like if a rock concert had a baby with a Broadway show, and you kind of get some British pop vibes from it, and it's just such a fun experience that I would recommend to anybody. So when it opens on Broadway, I recommend. But it's a really awesome show, all about kind of turning this story on its head and kind of recentering the people at the heart of this story. And I think it's a really important message and such a fun show. I've been singing the songs all day in preparation for this. Just saying. Okay, so once this butter is incorporated, we'll move on to adding the butter and cream. Let's do it. So yeah, the next part of this recipe is just adding our eggs and cream mixture. So you just want to whip up the eggs a little bit and just combine it with the cream. Just pour it in. This part gets a little messier, so like have your trusty spoon and get in there. And then once it starts to be incorporated a little, you can go back to using your hands. I just think that incorporates better, but this part's just a little sticky. So you just want to get in there and make sure you really put some elbow grease in to like incorporate everything. And it's a bit of a wet mixture, but once we're done here, we're gonna knead it out on the surface with more flour, so don't worry about it. So just continue to mix it in. And then the next thing we'll do is actually incorporate our cranberries that we've actually coated in like a little dusting of flour, just so that they don't sink to the bottom of the dough and that they're incorporated throughout. So let's do that part. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna pour these cranberries in. They've been doused in flour, just so, as I said, they don't sink, and you get a real fully incorporatedness into the scone itself. And okay, yeah, I'm ditching the spoon. Once you're adding fruit in there, You gotta do it. What's nice about this scone recipe is that you could do any citrus, any fruit, any flavoring. I did a little bit of almond extract, you could do a little bit of lemon, you could do really whatever you want in it, which is what's really nice about it. But you have to be careful if you're using fresh fruit, because at this stage when you're mixing it in, they start to explode. So I find it's easier to use, like this is dried cranberries, or you can even use frozen fruit, because they cook and become juicy as it bakes, so you don't have to worry about it being fresh. And it adds the sweetness, because you don't need the sweetness from the fruit, because the scones themselves are sweet, and just, oh my god, it smells so good. I'm so excited. So our next step is to just put a little flour on our counter, pour this out, and we'll start kneading. Let's do it. Okay, so our final step before we start cutting out scones is to just take our scone batter, pour it onto this counter that I have, there we go, generously floured, because you want a lot of flour on here, because if you don't, it starts to stick, and that's not good. So just make sure you don't lose any cranberries. You just want to, just a couple, oh, we didn't get all the dough. Yeah, make sure you get all the dough out of the thing, make sure you've generously floured, and then it's all about kneading until it really comes together. We don't want to over knead it. I'm sure we can flour everything. We don't want to over knead it because they'll become tough, but just like a little. See, if you've ever done pottery, you know, like kneading clay. But here, just take it if you've ever made bread, but just very gently. We just want it to come together. Okay, so this is mostly come together, and what we're going to do is we're just, you can use rolling pin, but I find that's unnecessary. Just push everything away. Basically, just pat it out. It's okay if you leave some finger palm prints. Okay, just patting it. And we want a pretty thick dough, because we want them to rise, and the best part is if you're using clotted cream, or in this case we're doing like a honey, like, dairy yogurty kind of mixture. Ones that are thick so you can split them in half, top-wise. So you don't want to pat them too thin. You just kind of get it to like about 3/4 of an inch. You can measure it if you want, but it's not really necessary. You just want to make sure you get to pretty even consistency, because you don't want them to all bake at different times. You don't want to have a raw scone, although probably delicious. Unnecessary. You want to get that flakiness that we've worked so hard with the butter we've incorporated by hand. So you just continue to pat out. This looks pretty good. And then we'll get the cup in, cut them out, and throw them in the oven. Let's do it. So our next step is to make our filling. So here I have a little bit of Greek yogurt, and we're just gonna add a little bit of cream. You just wanna thin it out a little. I'm gonna take orange, like you could use pre-made orange juice if you don't have real orange, but you need a zest earlier, so you should have an orange. Just squeeze the orange in there. This one's like segmenting itself. Yeah, so just, if you don't have enough, you can even use other citrus. You could use lemon, grapefruit, I guess, whatever you got, blood orange. And then you just take a little bit of honey. I'd say just about like 1/4 or 1/3 of a cup. We really don't want it to be too sweet, because the scone itself is already pretty sweet. So we're just gonna actually kind of refresh it a little. That's good, huh? You just take it, or just kind of like whip it a little. I'd oopsies. Well, it's not baking if it's not messy, isn't it? Just take it, and you just wanna just kind of whip it until it's combined, get a little air in there, but it's gonna be pretty thin, not like thin, but pretty thin. Kind of going for a sauce consistency. Just take it, whip it, and this looks pretty good. Who's ready? Let's keep going. Well, the scones just came out of the oven, and what can I say? It smells British in here. So, we have our beautiful scone. Oh my god, it's hot. We have our beautiful scone. They've puffed up, you can see at the edges, they've kind of broken, which is exactly what you're looking for, because you want to be able to just pull the top away from the bottom like that. Oh my god, they're hot, but they smell so good. Whew. You have a little bit of an egg wash and a little bit of a sugar sprinkling on top. Take my word, they're delicious. Ooh, they're a little crispy. Mwah. So we're gonna take our creamy mixture. Remember, you could even put it in the fridge if you wanted to congeal a little more, but I like mine a little creamier, kind of like a creamy, citrusy, sweet clotted cream. I think it kind of helps, just kind of like relaxes the dish a little bit. Take that, and then just take, I have some orange segments. I feel like they bring some freshness. You could do actually any fruit you like, especially if you're doing like blueberry or raspberry scone. You can do fresh raspberries and stuff like that, or a raspberry compote. So many options, so much to, it's very customizable dessert. So you take some citrus slices. I have a couple cranberries just to bring in that flavor that we had. Just because I think, you know, it's good to tie in all the flavors. So we got some of those. And then the final thing, to really tie back into our bee sting dessert, I have some toasted sliced almonds that I think, the dish is really calling for some texture, okay? Because you have the creaminess and you have a bit of the crunch on the outside of the scone, but it's all calling for a little bit of texture. So you just take a couple of these almond slices and you just sprinkle them on. You kind of just pile everything onto this dessert, because the more the better. The more the merrier, I like to say. And it's perfect. It's like melting because it's so hot. Well, it looks amazing. And if you like this video, like and subscribe, and I don't know, what do you eat with your scones? I don't know. I need to go make myself a cup of tea. I'm not gonna lie. I feel very British right now. But in honor of 6, here's our dessert, a German-British mashup, and thanks for watching. See you in a couple weeks.